A lot of people are familiar with Operation Bluestar, but do you know the story behind the famous operation? Between the 1st and 10th of June 1984, Indian security forces conducted Operation Bluestar to remove Damdami Taxil commander and terrorist Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale and his associates from the Golden Temple structures in Amritsar, Punjab, India, which is the holiest shrine for Sikhs. The operation would go down in history as one of the bloodiest in India's civil history, and the events that occurred after the operation are told by those that survived it. But did you know there was a plan before Operation Bluestar? And do you know about Britain's role in the operation? In our video today, we give you the juicy details of what went down before Operation Bluestar. So sit down, relax, and let's take you back to 1984 India. A meeting with Indira Gandhi. In April of 1984, a white sedan pulled into the driveway of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's home, a modest Lutyens Delhi mansion. A tall, bespectacled man emerged from the vehicle, a man simply known as DGS. DGS, or Director General Security, was a principal officer in the Research and Analysis Wing, who oversaw a tiny air force and two secret paramilitary forces, the Special Frontier Force and the Special Services Bureau. 3 years before, DGS had formed another force, the Special Group, for clandestine counter-terrorist missions in Punjab and Assam. SG soldiers, all chosen from the army, had been training in secret at a facility outside Delhi for 2 months in preparation for a key operation. DGS was led into the living room, where a pensive Mrs. Gandhi sat with Rameshwar Nath Kaul, the reclusive spy master who had founded the external intelligence organization RAW in 1968 and used it to train Mukti Bahini insurgents during the Bangladesh War in 1971. In 1981, Mr. Rameshwar had returned to the government as Mrs. Gandhi's top advisor. He became her de facto national security advisor. More importantly, he was a crucial advisor on the Punjab issue, as communal violence had enveloped India's most wealthy state for more than 2 years. Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, a fiery religious speaker, had been leading a radical gang of Sikhs who declared war on the state. By 1984, his ragtag band of armed sympathizers had killed over 100 civilians and security officers. From 1981, the hardline militant commander had been entrenched near the Golden Temple with his highly armed troops, safe in the knowledge that he was near Sikhism's holiest site. But something else was cooking not too far from him. DGS briefed Mrs. Gandhi on a surgical mission to expel the insurgents that fell short of a military strike. He stated that Operation Sundown was a snatch-and-grab operation. Heliborne commandos would storm the Guru Nanak Niwas Hotel near the Golden Temple and kidnap the terrorist leader. The operation was called the Sundown Operation because it was planned to occur after midnight, when Bhindranwale and his guards were least expecting it. SG agents had already penetrated the Golden Temple under the guise of pilgrims and journalists to assess its layout. Over 200 SG commandos had then practiced the operation. The training was intense, as everything had to be inch perfect. 2 Mi-4 transport helicopters were to drop commandos onto the guest bungalow and make a beeline for Bhindranwale. When they apprehended him, a ground attack team would drive in and whisk him away. A battle with the extremist leader's bodyguards and citizens who may jump in to defend him was a possibility they were prepared for. Mrs. Gandhi sat impassively and listened as DGS went on about the tactics and strategy. Still, she had one question: how many people would die? DGS answered, 20% of the commando force and both helicopters. Mrs. Gandhi made a frowning expression. She was curious as to how many civilians might perish. The RAW official was unable to provide a response. No one had done so, and that was the end of it. Operation Sundown died before the first chopper could take flight because Mrs. Gandhi said no. Mrs. Gandhi ordered the army to remove extremists from the temple 2 months later. In Operation Bluestar, the single deadliest clash in independent India's history of civil strife, 83 army men and 492 civilians were killed. Bhindranwale and his little force were defeated by machine guns, light artillery, rockets and combat tanks. The Akal Takht, the Sikhs' highest seat of temporal power, was destroyed by a blazing wreck. Sundown and its considerable preparations were buried in RAW's hidden archives during the chaos of Bluestar. The order. Punjab police were paralyzed from acting after the daylight murder of Deputy Inspector General A.S. Atwal within the Golden Temple in April 1983, and the tens of thousands of paramilitary forces dispatched by Delhi after the state administration dissolved in October 1983 had failed to stop the state from devolving into chaos. On May 11, 1984, Bhindranwale rejected the final solution presented to the Akali Dal by Mrs. Gandhi's think tank, directed by Narasimha Rao. Soon after, Army Chief of Staff General Arun Kumar Vaidya began regularly visiting Mrs. Gandhi's office. R.K. Dhawan, her personal secretary and confidant, attended one of the half-hour sessions. General Vaidya promised her there would be no casualties and no damage to the Golden Temple, Dhawan said in an interview with India Today. Talks with the Akalis broke down on June 2nd. According to Mark Tully's and Satish Jacobs' book, Armistar, Mrs. Gandhi was not a determined lady. She was very reluctant to act. She only fought back when she was pushed against the ropes. Her final recourse was the army. She gave the go-ahead for Operation Bluestar. Dhawan claims that her change of heart was caused by two extra-constitutional authorities in Rajiv Gandhi's inner circle, who would subsequently become significant characters in his cabinet. He claims that they informed her that the military option was the only alternative. The colorful Lieutenant General Krishnaswamy Sundarji, the commander of the Western Army, took up the mantle. He had pondered starving the defenders but decided against it because he was afraid of a rural rebellion. The sun is also a star. The phone rang at R.K. Dhawan's Golf Links residence at about 6 a.m. on June 6, 1984. The Minister of State for Defense, K.P. Singh Deo, requested Dhawan to deliver an urgent message to Mrs. Gandhi. He stated the operation was a success, although there were a lot of losses, both soldiers and civilians. Mrs. Gandhi's initial reaction was one of distress. "Oh my God," she exclaimed to Dhawan. "They said there would be no casualties." The army needed another 2 days to dislodge Bhindranwale's soldiers from the temple's maze-like halls. A shooter gravely injured the commanding officer of the military contingent, a lieutenant colonel, as he took President Zail Singh around the shrine on June 8th. Sikh feelings were heightened by Operation Bluestar, which sparked a mutiny in certain Indian army troops. It also resulted in Mrs. Gandhi's death. On October 31st that year, her 2 Sikh bodyguards killed her. Licking old wounds. Operation Sundown reappeared 3 decades later in an unexpected location, London. On January 13th, the United Kingdom was astonished to learn that Margaret Thatcher's administration had aided India in developing a strategy to remove Sikh fanatics from the Golden Temple, according to declassified communications dated February 1984. According to a top-secret letter from the British Foreign Secretary, Geoffrey Howe, to the Home Secretary, Leon Britton, this plan was set up by an officer of the Special Air Services, the UK's elite commando squad. The letter, which was sent 4 months before Bluestar, aroused worries of retaliation from the UK's Sikh population, forcing Prime Minister David Cameron to commission an investigation. 4 Sikh youngsters attempted to assassinate retired Lieutenant General Kuldip Singh Brar on London's Oxford Street on September 30, 2012. Brar, the leader of Bluestar and a frequent traveler to London, was able to escape. Not too long ago, 2 of his assailants were sentenced to 14 years in prison. New details concerning probable British participation in the build-up to Bluestar have already sparked heated debate. Former RAW officers and personnel of the agency's Covert military division, on the other hand, describe a different narrative. They informed authorities that the SAS help was not for Bluestar, which was a straight army attack. It was for Operation Sundown, a commando operation to be tested. According to B. Raman, former head of RAW's counterterrorism branch, in his 2007 book, The Cowboys of RAW, 2 MI5 intelligence liaison personnel at the British High Commission surveyed the Golden Temple complex in December 1983. They informed a senior SAS officer dispatched by the United Kingdom to Delhi, who approved the unique mission. Mrs. Gandhi's espionage chief, R.N. Kao, who had a personal relationship with numerous foreign intelligence heads, requested the SAS's advice. Although Sundown was cancelled, the commandos who had prepared for it led a near-suicidal frontal assault on the strongly guarded Akal Takht during Bluestar, and stayed until the temple's last militant was driven out 3 days later. Who knows what would have happened if Operation Sundown had been carried out instead? Do you think it would have changed the course of history? Comment below. Did you enjoy our video on Operation Bluestar? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and subscribe as more exciting videos are on the way.